Okay, so I want to talk about this skepticism I get when I talk about us evolving or reaching this new level, right? People are saying basically, what are you talking about? We're so inhumane, we're so corrupt. Look at the world. But I do believe that we have evolved or reached this new level. And I think one of the things that are driving this skepticism is corporate news, with it bombarding us with these images and stories of the worst aspects of our behavior. But I believe that is just the matrix trying to keep us in the matrix. There's so many benefits that the system gets from keeping us in this kind of state of fear and division. But there's this statement that says that we're actually in the safest, this is the safest time things have ever been. These are the most peaceful times that things have ever been, and that's true. Even with all this warfare and bombings and mass shootings and all this other inhumanity and corruption, this is still some of the most safest or peaceful times in our history. Even look at the pandemic. Yes, very tragic, very deadly. But then look at the deaths of the Black Plague. Okay, things are better, things are safer, and things are more peaceful. Okay, and I believe people are kind of disregarding or underestimating what work and effort that took for us to get here and for that took for us to be here now. Okay, it took so much work and effort and patience and compassion and empathy and mindfulness and consciousness for us for that to be the case. Okay, we can use mass shootings just as an example. Okay, there's so many people who were on the trajectory who were in the same state to potentially commit a mass shooting, but they chose not to, out of compassion, out of consciousness, out of these higher faculties, right? Out of these choosing this more evolved state or choice. Okay, so we can't disregard so much of the effort we've put to get to this point. Some of these people have isolated themselves or even have committed suicide to not let that volatile, hateful energy be unleashed. Or just let's use a more common example. Have you encountered a person who kind of got belligerent or aggressive towards you, but you kind of saw where that person was coming from, either from a place of compassion or empathy, or just from this sort of higher consciousness, right? You saw where that person was coming from. You saw it wasn't personal, so you kind of avoided that conflict, right? You saw that person's humanity. You work from a place of oneness, okay? Those type of encounters and occurrences have happened millions of times, okay? And every time we make these more higher conscious choices or these more moral choices, right? How many have been in situations where there was so much pressure to do the wrong thing, but you defied that pressure? Sometimes people even sacrificing themselves so they do that moral thing or make that moral choice or make that more higher conscious choice. All of those kind of choices are kind of uploaded into the system and is retained in which and kind of perpetuates our evolution, right? That kind of experience becomes wisdom. And now we're working from this new place of accumulated wisdom or this new basis of wisdom. And this was a long time in the making. If we go back to when people were doing these deep spiritual practices and disciplines, starting with the early ages of Pisces, we've kind of retained those experiences and abilities. For example, if you look at some of these monks doing these meditations, we retain that sort of zen that they acquired on a soul level. So go back to that scenario where you avoided this conflict. It's because you were working from this inner peace or inner zen. Okay, that's because we are reincarnated people. We are these people who practice these spiritual disciplines and practices. We reincarnated and retained that wisdom and those abilities. Also, we could make more peaceful and humane and higher conscious choices. Or what about these other spiritual expectations, like no sex before marriage or being chaste? That was us kind of wrestling with our primitive instincts, right? Our primitive desires, so we could garner more control of them. So, of course, that still happens with like these various sexual assaults and that type of thing. But us participating in those spiritual disciplines changed us on not just a physical level, but on a soul level, which enabled millions of people not to do that. Okay, in a sense, we've been spending thousands of years trying to tame our baser nature, trying to tame our dragons. And now we have this higher level of control of these so called dragons or baser nature where we can reintegrate that, where we become more of these conscious warriors. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, I do believe we have evolved and have reached another level. And it's been a long time in the making, and it took a lot of sacrifice, it took a lot of work, and it took a lot of effort. Now, am I saying that we've reached the final level of our evolution or that we're perfect? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that this time around, we did reach this next level of evolution. And it was by consciously striving to be more humane with all of this pressure and influences. And this pressure kind of turned the coal into diamonds. And we did achieve this new crystalline soul, which will reflect as this new level of consciousness.